Hello, and welcome to the Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. My name is Stephen Eiderstein, and thank you for joining us as we do the next chapter reading for V.C. Kitchen's I Was a Pagan. This is the book right here. So you put it in front of my face so it focuses on it. There you go. And this is also a copy you can find on Amazon as well. Just want you to know that. It's the same facsimile reprint of the original copy that I just showed you. So we have made some updates to the podcast. I hope you enjoy it. The camera angle change again as we're settling into how this is going to look going forward. So I appreciate y'all's understanding and your patience as we go through this, and hopefully have a little bit better quality of a podcast for y'all. So we do have a YouTube channel. We have a Spotify channel. We're on Facebook, Instagram. Instagram's still getting up and running. But please go ahead, give us a like, give us a follow, subscribe on YouTube here, and leave some comments. Let me know what you think of the content. I appreciate it. So we will go into today's reading, and I will be reading out of the original, just because I like reading it, doing the original readings. Or reading out of the original book, it just seems that it's got a little bit more power to it for me, even though it's the same book. So we will be doing chapter 14, titled This Business of Remaking the World, Sociology. So here we go. I Was a Pagan by V.C. Kitchen, chapter 14. This Business of Remaking the World, Sociology. I had gained most of my possessions, pleasure, power, position, and applause I wanted in life. But they did not bring me what I had hoped to find. I had, you might say, attained my material aims, but found no lasting gains. And as most people do when they miss the point of life, I was quick to blame this on the other fellow. I did not, in other words, find any fault with my own effort or achievements. I envisioned a society in which everybody was to be made as happy and as comfortable in life as I had wanted to be. In this ideal state, however, I was still to draw a slightly greater measure of happiness and comfort than the rest, by reason of having shown the others how to be so. It was to this end that I directed my early writings. With my change, however, I saw the futility of any of this social dreaming and planning. I saw at the idealistic end the futile effort to build a fairy dream castle in the clouds, while we had nothing but earthbound dwarfs as carpenters. I saw at the selfish end nothing but a greedy attempt to divide up the spoils or to build a society which gave the ruling power to one's own kind, and thus gave to oneself a much higher position of glory. The idealistic end offered nothing but heartbreak. The other could lead nowhere but to social revolution, which, as always, would be nothing but the exchange of a known evil for an unknown evil, a change in the delegation of power with no change in the powers of the delegate, a change in the basic system with no change in the baseness of men. I saw, in other words, that it was not a new system we needed, but a new people. Not a new division of wealth, but a new discernment of where wealth lies. Not a new kind of government, but a new quality of life. I saw that no division of spoils can really help people who are spoiled themselves. I saw that to rebuild the social order, its constituents would have to be rebuilt one by one. I saw that, as in education, in marriage, in business, and in politics, such a reformation would have to start, not in the other fellow, but in myself. My first thought in self-reformation was that I would have to begin to do more for the other fellow. I would have to be more charitable than I had been. A man's belly must be fed, I figured, before we can feed his soul. And while my charities had never been generous, while I foresaw grave dangers and indiscriminate doles, while I did not approve of maid work or unsecured loans to the deserving, I could, for the time, think of no other way to feed, clothe, or house the unemployed. Soon, however, members of the group led me to see the temporary nature of these charitable efforts. They showed me that in helping a man only to find his next meal, I was merely helping a lame dog over a fence. The really charitable thing to do for a lame dog after helping him over the fence is to get down to the cause of his lameness. And the really charitable thing to do for the hungry man was to get down to the sin which is blocking him from God, and thus blocking him from knowledge of the plan by which God means him to make his living. I now know that when I lead a man to God, all these things shall be added unto him. I give him charity without God, he is likely to find neither the next time. Once, for instance, I gave a $20 bill to a hungry artist who had come to the very brink of an experience of God. I thought my gift would increase his confidence in me and thus help him take the final jump. Instead of this, however, my charity convinced him that he could get along on his own, as usual. He turned away from God and found no lasting solution, either to his spiritual or physical problem. The Oxford group, in short, taught me that true Christian charity is not a matter of sympathetic sentimentality in trying to meet a man's obvious needs alone. They taught me that it is a matter of getting down to his deeper, hidden needs, no matter how much more difficult that may be. It is easy, for example, to get a man to show you his cellar and thus to diagnose his need for a ton of coal. It is far more difficult to get him to show you his soul, diagnosing his sin and relating his need to its remedy in Christ. This, however, is the only effective way to help. It is difficult, of course, for charity workers to see and admit that spiritual needs are both more numerous and more acute than physical needs. It is difficult to think that the physical need or the educational need is never fully met unless the spiritual need be met as well. A group social worker, however, explained to me that modern sociologists themselves have long since discredited the effectiveness of any kind of soulless charity. They are employing today what is known as the case method of giving help, a method which takes each individual case and seeks to get down to and meet the real underlying needs that may be found there. By the case method, for example, a social worker studies the individual's personal problems and diagnoses the cause of the trouble. He may then try to make up any educational deficiencies he finds there. He may try to help that individual surmount his marital difficulties or show him how to train his children. He may show him how to budget his income. He may teach him how to overcome his physical disabilities. He works with individuals, in other words, as Jesus Christ himself would work. And as any Christian worker should work, but with the following important difference. It is not enough just to show a man what changes in his life are needed. The need is never met until you give him the power to change, along with the discernment. That power is not found in education, in marital psychology, in child training, in economic budgeting, in dietetics, hygiene, or birth control. The only power that fully meets man's needs physically, mentally, spiritually is the power of God. And that power can only be conveyed through a converted social worker. In fact, not only The unconverted worker, in fact, not only lacks the power to change lives, but is handicapped from the beginning of his investigation of the case, in his diagnosis of the trouble, and in the formation of a further life plan. Without the direction of God, for instance, it is an impertinence to pry into another man's personal affairs, or to try to change him according to one's own ideals, and standards. Only God can make one sincerely loving and wholly selfless in such work. Only the directing love of Jesus Christ can give any worker the right to enter the life of another human being. And, in fact, only such love can gain us the entrance. In my unconverted days, for instance, I found men like an island without any landing. I could row around them for days without finding any opening in their shoreline. They, in fact, considered my approach an affront, which is exactly what it was. They rightfully shut up like a clam, told me to mind my own business, or got rid of me with glib lies which preserved their pride, but gave me no clue to their inner problems. Today, however, when I go as God guides, I find an entrance. In many such cases, the other fellow has actually started to seek me. He is looking for help and ready to discuss his problems. Without God, I would find myself helpless in diagnosis. Even when men come seeking aid, there are often inner sores so filthy and repugnant that they dare not bring them to light, or they are utterly unconscious of the real sin that is causing all the trouble. Without spiritual insight and intuition, I have failed many times to get down to these shame-ridden or unrecognized sins. At one such time, for instance, a man seemed so unreserved and straightforward with me that I accepted his whole story at face value. On the human basis, he told me he fooled me completely, and then the Holy Spirit whispered, "This man is lying. And he has not told his wife, no matter what he tells you. Get down to the real truth of the matter." Another difference is that the unconverted worker may know what a man should do to fit into the social environment, but has no idea what he should do to fit into the plan of God, his scheme for civilization. A final solution will come for the world only when its individuals are led to plan, not for their own small sake, not for the benefit of their immediate social environment, but only when they are fitted into the place God has for them, and thus raised to their true position of equality in his service. The sociologist, in short, is as helpless as the psychologist, economist, educator, or priest, unless he has the power of the living Christ at hand to help him. The modern sociologist goes into the problems of an individual's physical ability. With nothing but the social gospel or the social sciences, however, he cannot go beyond physical education, medical care, and cleaning up of insanitary conditions, the provision of recreation centers, and the issuing of health and liability insurance. He does not, through these agencies, effectively root out self-indulgence and fear, the two factors which probably contribute more to ill health than any others you could name. A stern physician might temporarily check the desire to overindulge in alcohol, tobacco, narcotics, sweets, coffee, tea, or rich food. He may give orders concerning laziness, lack of exercise, depressing moods, and uncontrolled thoughts and imaginations. This is nothing but suppression. This is nothing but suppression that sooner or later must break out in some other forms. It takes the power of God to remove the desire for these indulgences. A shrewd psychologist, moreover, may diagnose worry about the past, discouragement, resentments, irritation, temper, worry about one's family, job, or future, possessiveness, and being run ragged with duties. Yet he has nothing but good advice to offer as remedy. It takes the power of God to remove these fears and mental conditions. This is not suppression, but a true sublimation. Without the great physician at his elbow, the medical social worker can be nothing more than stretcher bearer on a field of endless warfare. He cannot remove the cause of much physical ill health or cure sick souls. The same handicap I have found confronts the social criminologist. It is not only bad human companionship that produces the moral pervert. It is lack of spiritual companionship. It is not only want of food that gives us a thief. It is the want of God. It is not only poverty of purse which makes the prostitute. It is the poverty of soul. It is not the criminals who cause an annual loss and waste of billions of dollars. It is the Christians who refuse to use the power of Christ to give. It is Christians who refuse to use the power Christ would give them. It is not, in brief, any new social science nor any new technique in the case method of approach which would have made the Oxford group such a vitally effective social instrument. It is because these people have found, obey, and use the power and direction of Jesus Christ. It is this power which converted man after man in a certain gaol and brought an ex-thief into the group fellowship with the judge who sentenced him. It is the power which has formed life-changing groups of 60 in one house, of 60 in one central prison, of 75 in a house of detention. It is this power which causes a director in one of our largest prisons in this country to say the whole atmosphere of this place has been changed in a few months because of the work of the Oxford group. It was this power, again, which caused a young industrialist to see the conditions in his works through the eyes of Christ. It was this power which brought a woman who owned her tenement houses in the poor districts of her city to investigate the actual conditions there herself and put them right. It is this power which has stopped divorce proceedings in hundreds of homes, stopped suicide in hundreds of cases, and stopped many bitter private wars between antagonistic men. It is this power, moreover, which is now solving the difficult black and white as well as English and Dutch race problems in South Africa, and which brought members of different races together on new basis in Persia. It was this power which brought reconciliation between the cousin of a famous German war ace and the Canadian aviator who shot him down. It is this power which is leveling national barriers and is the only power that can prevent another international war. It is this power finally, and this power only, which can bring into being the social ideals of freedom, equality, and fraternity. Ideals that can never come to pass in any humanistic plan. With their inborn inequality of talents, for example, men can never gain equality in money and possessions. All men, however, have equal opportunity to serve him, and the talent of the least is as necessary for the purpose as the talent of the greatest. Under God, all men are equal indeed. Here, also, all men are free. In the social system, men invariably become the slaves of the systems they themselves devise. Only God's higher freedom can detach them from these systems, liberate them from the dependence upon other men and free them from slavery to their own pleasures, indulgences, traditions, willfulness, and deceit. As for fraternity, a brother may be closely knit through some common concern, or at times of menace when some mutual interest is at stake. But let the interest wane or the emergency pass, and men are again at each other's throats. There are no true brothers except through a common Father. There is no brotherhood of man except under the fatherhood of God. I had been, for instance, a slave to my own business for some 20 years. I had never left the office for a stretch longer than a week. When I gave my life to God, however, He freed me from this bondage. He made it possible and made me willing to take an extended trip with an Oxford group team. This team consisted of some 40 life changers working under God's guidance as one man. Some, judging by human standards, were more talented and spectacular than others. As members of God's team, however, our talents are all combined, and each played an equally important interwoven part in furthering God's plan. We were equal in His eyes. As for brotherhood, there probably were not more than 10 of these people who, on any human basis, I could or would have picked as friends. Yet, after but 3 days of sharing and fellowship in Christ, I grew to know and love each one of the 40 as I had not known or loved my own chosen clubmates during an intimacy of years. When, therefore, I am told that the Oxford group has no social outreach, I can answer from experience that unless a man has Christ, he has no reach at all. When I am told of those who would substitute a social gospel for the gospel of Jesus Christ, I can answer, you are slipping backwards, not forging ahead. And when I am told of extremists who would remake the world through revolution, I can answer, we want a revolution as much as you do, but you are only half-hearted. Yours is only a surface revolution. Ours goes all the way down, deep down, inside the man. That is the end of that chapter. And wow. Talk about relevancy today. That's incredible. I absolutely loved that chapter. And it's talking about the equality and the reality of things in this world and how to actually reach out and touch and connect to somebody. It's just so important. I loved that. Absolutely loved it. Hope y'all enjoyed it too. We'll be back again next weekend with a review of the chapter, and I hope you guys enjoy that as well. So give us a like, a subscribe, check us out on Spotify, Facebook, whatever you'd like, and we'll be back again next time. So until next time, thanks.